Look up at the night sky for a moment. If you're far from the amber glow of a city, you might see a few thousand flickering points of light. It feels quiet. It feels distant. To the human eye, the universe presents itself as a vast, silent theatre of mostly empty space. For the entirety of human history, we believed this image. We built our myths and our religions around the idea that the stars were sparse, scattered jewels in an infinite black ocean. But I am here to tell you that the night sky is an unreliable narrator. The darkness you see isn't a void. It isn't emptiness. It is a mask. What you're looking at is a deeply misleading fragment of reality. A tiny, curated window into a cosmos that is far more crowded, far more violent, and far more terrifying than your brain is naturally prepared to understand. For centuries, the silence of the night sky went unchallenged, because we assumed that if there were things out there, we would see them. We thought that light was the ultimate messenger, always telling the truth about what exists. We were wrong. The darkness isn't just an absence of light. It is evidence. It is a residue of distance, of time, and of a cosmic census that refuses to stay still. If the universe is truly as crowded as scientists say, filled with trillions of galaxies, each holding hundreds of billions of stars, then why, when you look up, is the sky black? This is the heart of a mystery that has haunted astronomers for centuries. In an infinite, unchanging universe, every single line of sight should eventually hit the surface of a star. The entire sky, every square inch of it, should be as bright as the surface of the sun. Night should not exist, and yet, it does. For a long time, we comforted ourselves with simple answers. We thought perhaps space dust was blocking the view, or that the most distant stars were just too faint to notice. But as our technology improved, those excuses began to crumble. We discovered that the universe had a beginning, a moment 13.8 billion years ago when everything started. And because light has a speed limit, we realized we can only see the objects whose light has had enough time to reach us. This created a bubble, the observable universe. It's a boundary of perception, not a boundary of existence. But even within that bubble, the darkness was hiding something. We used to think we lived in a universe with maybe 100 billion galaxies. It was a comfortable number, a number we thought we could handle. Then we pointed a telescope at a tiny pitch-black patch of sky, a region no larger than a grain of sand held at arm's length, and we let it stare into the nothingness for 10 days. What came back wasn't blackness, it was a cosmic ambush. Thousands of galaxies poured out of that single grain of sand. This was the Hubble Deep Field, and it fundamentally rewrote our place in the cosmos. If every grain of sand in the sky held thousands of galaxies, the math changed overnight. The census jumped from 200 billion to 2 trillion. Suddenly the sky wasn't empty, it was haunted. We realized that 90% of the galaxies in our own backyard were invisible to us, hiding below our detection threshold, too faint or too red-shifted for our eyes to ever grasp. But here is where the truth turns from overwhelming to truly terrifying. Even that number, 2 trillion, is now under fire. Recent data from the New Horizons mission, currently screaming through the dark edges of our solar system, has sent back readings that suggest the galaxy count might be a lie. They looked at the background light of the universe and found it was much darker than 2 trillion galaxies would allow. The cosmic census is mutating. We are caught in a war of numbers where the very foundation of how we measure the universe is cracking. Are there trillions of islands out there, or is the universe even emptier and lonelier than we feared? Or more disturbingly, are those galaxies there, but made of something that light cannot touch? We have spent decades looking for light, but we're beginning to realize that the most massive structures in the universe might be ghost galaxies. These aren't just far away, they are structurally invisible. We found candidates like Dark Galaxy 2, massive systems that are 99% dark matter. They have almost no stars, they emit no glow, they're heavy silent giants drifting through the void, completely undetectable by any traditional telescope. Imagine a universe filled not just with the galaxies we can see, but with millions of dark, starless shadows that we can only detect by the way they tug on the light around them. The trillions of galaxies might not be a count of stars, but a count of ghosts. This brings us to the most unsettling realization of all. We're currently living in a narrow, lucky window of cosmic history. We call it the legibility window. Because the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate, space is stretching. Light from distant galaxies is being pulled like a rubber band, shifting into colors we cannot see, and eventually those galaxies will move so fast that their light will never reach us again. We are watching a slow-motion deletion. The universe is actively erasing its own record. Every deep field image we take isn't just a photo, it's an archaeological excavation of a past that is already gone. Many of the galaxies we see in our most advanced telescopes have already crossed the cosmic horizon. They're no longer there. We are looking at the recovered tape of a universe that has already moved on. If humans had evolved a few billion years later, we would look up at a sky that is almost entirely black. The evidence of the Big Bang, the clues to our origin, and the existence of other galaxies would all be gone, erased by the expansion of space. We would be trapped in a local cluster, believing we were the only things in existence, never knowing that a trillion galaxy empire once surrounded us. We are the only witnesses to a disappearing act. The trillions of galaxies are not just a static fact to be memorized, they are a disappearing mystery. The darkness you see when you look up at night isn't just a lack of stars, it is the shadow of a horizon that is closing in on us. It is the mask that the universe wears to hide the fact that its blueprint is breaking, that its census is unstable, and that the vast majority of its weight is carried by things that refuse to shine. We thought we were looking at a quiet, empty room. We were actually standing in a vast, crowded gallery, where the lights are being turned off one by one, and we're the only ones left to notice. The terrifying truth isn't just that there are trillions of galaxies, it's that we were never meant to see them at all. We're a brief flicker of consciousness in a universe that is working very hard to stay hidden. And as we peel back the mask of the night sky, we're discovering that what lies behind the darkness isn't just more light, it is a deeper, more permanent kind of silence. This is the story of the galaxies we found, the ghosts we missed, and the inevitable day when the sky finally tells the truth and goes dark forever. If you want to understand the true scale of our ignorance, you have to look at the numbers. We live in an era where we can map the human genome, split the atom, and track the movement of a single photon, yet we still cannot agree on how many galaxies exist in our own observable backyard. We like to think of science as a steady climb toward the truth, a process of adding more and more detail to a map until it's finished. But when it comes to the cosmic census, the map isn't just unfinished, it's mutating. The numbers are moving. And the story of how we tried to count the universe is less like a physics textbook and more like a high-stakes detective story, where the main suspect keeps changing its identity. For most of the late 20th century, we thought we had the universe figured out. We looked at our best data and settled on a comfortable, manageable number, 100 to 200 billion galaxies. It was a staggering figure, certainly, more galaxies than there are people who have ever lived, but it was a number the human mind could at least pretend to grasp. We built our models on this foundation. We assumed that the void between these 200 billion islands was exactly that, empty space. We believed our telescopes were showing us the majority of what was out there. We were wrong. We weren't looking at the whole picture, we were looking at a highlight reel. The first major crack in this foundation happened in 1995 with the Hubble Deep Field, which I mentioned earlier, but the real numerical terror didn't truly peak until 2016. That was the year a team of astronomers led by Christopher Consolis reanalyzed decades of data and dropped a bomb on the scientific community. They didn't just find a few more galaxies, they suggested the number was actually 10 times higher than anyone had dared to guess. Suddenly, the 200 billion jumped to 2 trillion. Think about that jump for a second. That isn't a small correction. That is a 900% increase in the amount of stuff we share the universe with. It meant that for every galaxy we could see, there were 9 others hiding in the shadows, too faint, too small, or too redshifted for our most advanced instruments to detect. It suggested that the universe was invisible by design. The implications were horrifying. If we were missing 90% of the galaxies in the observable universe, what else were we missing? If the settled number could change by a factor of 10 in a single afternoon, how stable was our understanding of anything? This is what I call numerical instability. It's the feeling that the ground beneath our feet is made of shifting sand. We call it the galaxy count war. And just when we were getting comfortable with the 2 trillion figure, just when we had updated our textbooks and our YouTube videos to reflect this massive crowded cosmos, the universe threw us another curveball. Enter the New Horizons mission. Most people know New Horizons as the little probe that took those beautiful heart-shaped photos of Pluto. but after it zoomed past that icy world, it kept going. It is currently billions of miles away in the dark, cold suburbs of our solar system. Out there, far from the blinding glare of the sun's dust and the reflected light of the planets, the sky is truly dark. This gave scientists a unique opportunity to measure something called the cosmic optical background, the glow of the universe itself. The logic was simple. If there are 2 trillion galaxies out there, their combined light, even if they are too faint to see individually, should create a certain level of background hum in the sky. It would be like standing in a dark forest and seeing a faint collective glow from a distant city, even if you can't see the individual streetlights. But when New Horizons took its measurements between 2021 and 2024, the results were chilling. The sky was too dark. The data suggested that the trillions of galaxies might not be there, or at the very least they weren't emitting the light we expected. The sensors swung back. Suddenly some researchers were arguing that the number might be closer to hundreds of billions again, not trillions. We're currently in a state of cosmological whiplash. One instrument tells us the room is packed, another tells us it's mostly empty. This isn't just a boring debate over decimals. This is a fundamental crisis in how we understand the blueprint of reality. If there are fewer galaxies, then our theories about how the universe built itself are wrong. But if the 2 trillion figure is correct and the sky is still that dark, it means the missing galaxies are stranger than we ever imagined. It means they aren't just far away. They are ghost galaxies, systems that are structurally incapable of producing light. We're not just looking for needles in a haystack anymore. We're looking for needles that refuse to reflect light, buried in a haystack that is actively expanding. And then, just to make things even more complicated, we turned on the James Webb Space Telescope. We expected JWST to look back at the very beginning of time and find the babies of the universe. Tiny, chaotic, dim proto-galaxies that were just starting to form. Instead, we found what astronomers have started calling the impossible galaxies. These are objects that appeared only a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, yet they are already massive. They are stupidly bright, as one researcher put it. They look like mature, elderly galaxies that have somehow cheated the clock. They shouldn't have had enough time to grow that big. It's like walking into a nursery and finding a newborn baby that is 6 feet tall and has a PhD. These discoveries are cracking the standard model of cosmology. We used to think we knew the timeline. We thought we knew the budget of matter in the universe. But the more we look, the more the budget doesn't add up. We're finding too much mass too early, and yet, when we look at the total light in the sky, we find too much darkness. The universe is playing a shell game with us. It shows us something stupidly bright in one corner to distract us while it hides trillions of other worlds in another. This is the terrifying truth that most videos won't tell you. They want to give you a finished number so you can feel like you've learned something. They want to say the universe has 2 trillion galaxies and leave it at that. But the truth is much more unsettling. We're currently losing the census. We're in a period of profound uncertainty where our best models are being cross-examined by the very light we're trying to count. Every time we think we've finally mapped the beach, the tide comes in and moves the sand. We're trapped in a cycle of cosmic archaeology where every new trench we dig reveals ruins that shouldn't exist, and every new tool we build shows us that the nothingness we were studying is actually a crowded, invisible empire. Why does this matter to you? Because it proves that we are not living in a known universe. We are living in a mystery that is actively unfolding. The trillions of galaxies isn't a fact, it's a battleground. It's a symbol of a cosmos that is far more complex, far more deceptive, and far more dynamic than our small, human-centric models can handle. We aren't just counting islands in the dark. We're trying to read a book while the ink is still wet and the pages are being torn out by an accelerating expansion we don't fully understand. We're watching the universe's blueprint crack in real time, and as we move into the next chapter of this mystery, we have to ask, if the galaxies we can see are causing this much trouble, what is happening in the parts of the universe that have already gone dark? What is lurking in the 99% of the cosmos that our light-based telescopes can never ever touch? The census is just the beginning of the horror. The real nightmare starts when you realize that the things we can't count are the ones truly in control of the story. To understand how we arrived at the number 2 trillion, we have to stop thinking of telescopes as cameras and start seeing them for what they truly are: shovels. When an archaeologist wants to understand a lost civilization, They don't just look at the surface of the Earth. They find a patch of dirt that looks like nothing, and they dig. They cut a narrow, deep trench into the soil, slicing through layers of time to find the ruins buried beneath the weight of history. In the winter of 1995, NASA did exactly that with the Hubble Space Telescope. They didn't point it at a beautiful nebula or a bright swirling galaxy. They pointed it at a void. They chose a tiny, unremarkable patch of sky near the Big Dipper, a region that appeared to be completely, utterly empty. No stars from our own galaxy were in the way. No nearby planets, just a dark, cold keyhole into the deep universe. To many at the time, this was a monumental risk. Telescope time is the most expensive and sought-after resource in the scientific world, and the idea of staring at nothing for 10 consecutive days seemed like a waste of a billion-dollar instrument. But the team wasn't just taking a picture. They were performing a trench cut in time. Imagine holding a single grain of sand at arm's length against the night sky. The area of darkness covered by that tiny grain was larger than the patch of sky Hubble was about to excavate. For 10 days, the telescope's shutter remained open, drinking in the rarest, most exhausted photons in the universe. Light that had been traveling for 10 billion years, stretched and weakened by the expansion of space until it was almost a ghost. When the data finally came back and the image was processed, the nothingness was gone. In its place was a cosmic ambush. That tiny, sand-grain-sized sliver of the void was packed with over 3,000 galaxies. Each one was a city of stars, a massive, gravitationally bound empire holding hundreds of billions of suns, planets, and stories we will never know. It was the first time we realized that the universe isn't just sparsely populated. It is overwhelmingly dense on a scale that breaks the human mind. If that one tiny grain of sky held thousands of galaxies, then the full night sky must be a mosaic of trillions. This wasn't just a new discovery, it was a revelation of how blind we had been. We realized that for the entirety of human history, every time we looked at a blank patch of sky, we were actually staring into a wall of galaxies stacked across unimaginable distances. But here is the terrifying truth that those early reports didn't emphasize. That first trench cut was only a few inches deep into a mile-long tunnel. As our technology improved and we began to dig deeper with instruments like the Hubble Ultra Deep Field and now the James Webb Space Telescope, we realized that even our best photos were still lying to us. We were only seeing the highlight reel, the brightest, most massive, most active galaxies. In 2016, the census was dramatically revised. Astronomers realized that if you account for the missing light, the systems that are too small, too faint, or too diffuse for our current shovels to hit, the number of galaxies in the observable universe isn't 200 billion. It's at least 10 times higher. 2 trillion galaxies. That is a 2 followed by 12 zeros. To put that into a perspective, your brain was never designed to handle. If you started counting those galaxies right now, one per second, without ever stopping to eat, sleep, or breathe, it would take you 63,000 years to finish. If you had started counting the moment the first modern human stepped onto the African savanna, you would still be counting today. You wouldn't even be close to the end. This realization transformed the night sky into a haunted landscape. It means that 90% of the galaxies in our own observable bubble are currently invisible to us. They are missing islands of structure hiding below our detection threshold. When you look at a deep field image, you aren't seeing the universe. You're seeing the tip of a cosmic iceberg. The blackness between those thousands of glowing jewels is not empty space. It is a graveyard of ghost systems that our eyes are simply too weak to perceive. We are living in a universe that is invisible by design. This is the core of the cosmic archaeology framework. Every photon we catch in these deep field trench cuts is a piece of ancient pottery, a shard of a ruin that hasn't existed in that form for billions of years. Because light takes time to travel, the deeper we dig, the further back in time we see. We aren't looking at the universe as it is, we are looking at its fossil record. We are seeing galaxies in their chaotic youth, merging and colliding to form the giants we see nearby today. We are looking at the scaffolding of reality, and yet, as we dig these trenches, we are finding things that shouldn't be there. We are finding galaxies that are too mature and too bright for the era in which they exist. It's as if an archaeologist dug a trench to the Stone Age and found a digital watch buried in the silt. These impossible galaxies are currently cracking the very blueprint of cosmology. suggesting that the early universe was far more efficient at building massive structures than any of our models predicted. The terror of the 2 trillion isn't just the sheer number, it's the realization that the more we dig, the more we find that the rules we've spent centuries writing might only apply to the tiny fraction of the universe we can actually see. We're like children standing on the shore of a vast, dark ocean, looking at a few glowing plankton on the surface and believing we understand the depths. Every trench cut we make reveals that the darkness is not a void to be ignored, but a massive hidden archive of everything we have yet to understand. We are the first generation of humans to realize that we are surrounded by an empire of trillions, and yet, we are still standing in the dark, clutching our grain of sand, wondering how much more of the ruins are still waiting to be excavated. For years, the scientific community had a very specific, very comfortable expectation for what we would find when we finally launched the successor to Hubble. We had spent billions of dollars and decades of engineering on the James Webb Space Telescope with one primary goal: to witness the cosmic dawn. We wanted to see the very first stars and the very first galaxies as they flickered into existence in a dark, cold universe. In our minds, these would be the babies of the cosmos, small, chaotic, dim collections of primordial gas and a few scattered stars. We expected to find the equivalent of messy, unfinished sketches. Instead, we found a gallery of finished masterpieces that shouldn't have been painted yet. When the first data from JWST began to stream back to Earth, it didn't just surprise us, it delivered a physical shock to the foundations of cosmology. The images were supposed to show us the scaffolding of the early universe, the fragile beginnings of structure. But as the infrared eyes of the telescope cut through the dust and the distance, it revealed galaxies that were already massive, already structured, and most disturbingly, stupidly bright. That isn't just a colourful description, it is the visceral reaction of researchers like Rohan Naidu, who realized that the objects they were looking at were a puzzle that threatened to break our entire timeline of how a universe is built. To understand why this is terrifying, you have to understand the rules we thought the universe played by. According to the standard model of cosmology, it takes time to build a galaxy. You start with dark matter clumping together, pulling in hydrogen gas, which then collapses into the first generation of stars. Those stars then have to cluster, merge, and grow over billions of years to create the majestic spiral and elliptical empires we see in our local neighborhood today. We thought we knew exactly how fast this process could happen. We had a budget for matter and a speed limit for gravity. But JWST looked back to a time when the universe was only 300 to 500 million years old, a mere blink in cosmic terms, and found galaxies that looked like they had already lived for billions of years. They were mature, they were heavy, they were filled with old stars and complex structures. It was as if an archaeologist had dug a trench into a layer of earth corresponding to the Stone Age and found a perfectly preserved, fully functional skyscraper. It shouldn't be there. The math says there hasn't been enough time for the materials to even be gathered, let alone assembled into something so grand. This is what astronomers have begun calling the impossible galaxies. If these galaxies are as massive as they appear to be, they challenge the very existence of our standard model, the lambda CDM. They suggest that the blueprint of the universe might be fundamentally different from what we've been teaching in textbooks for the last 50 years. We are finding too much mass too early. It's like walking into a nursery and finding a newborn baby that is 6 feet tall, has a full beard, and is solving complex calculus equations. Our response isn't just wonder, it's a profound existential confusion. The stupidly bright problem goes even deeper. The brightness of these early galaxies suggests they are packed with an incredible number of stars, far more than we thought possible for that era. In the early universe, the fuel for stars, cold hydrogen, was supposed to be processed slowly, but these galaxies seem to have converted gas into stars with a terrifying supernatural efficiency. Or perhaps they aren't just stars. Some theories suggest we might be seeing the monsters of the early universe, massive black holes that are gorging on gas so quickly that they are lighting up the entire dawn of time with a ferocity that defies our models. This discovery has turned the search for the trillions of galaxies into a courtroom drama. On one side, you have the prosecution, the new data from JWST that points to a crisis. These bright ruins suggest that we have fundamentally misunderstood the dark ages of the universe, that the period before light wasn't a slow transition, but a violent, rapid eruption of structure. On the other side, you have the defense, scientists working frantically to find a way to save the standard model. They argue that perhaps these galaxies aren't actually as massive as they look, that maybe they are just filled with unusually bright stars that are tricking our instruments, or that our distance measurements are slightly off. But even the defense is struggling. The more we look, the more of these impossible structures we find. We are discovering that the early universe was a much busier, much more crowded place than we ever dared to imagine. It wasn't just a few lonely stars in the dark, it was a teeming, luminous landscape of ruins that were already old when the rest of the universe was just being born. This changes the emotional weight of the 2 trillion number. It means the census isn't just about counting what's there, it's about explaining how anything could be there at all. This brings us back to the idea of cosmic archaeology. If we are finding fully formed cities in the earliest layers of the universe, it means we are missing a chapter of the story. There must be an invisible history that happened even earlier, a period of even more rapid growth that our telescopes are only just beginning to touch. We are digging trench cuts in time, and every time we go deeper, we find that the nothingness we expected is actually filled with ancient, inexplicable light. The terror of the JWST shock is the realization that our legibility window might be even more fragile than we thought. We are seeing these bright, mature galaxies at the very edge of our vision, but because the universe is expanding, they are receding from us at incredible speeds. Their light is being stretched, red-shifted into the infrared, becoming fainter and more difficult to catch. We are in a race against the expansion of space to document these ruins before they cross the horizon and are lost to us forever. And it's not just about the galaxies themselves. We're using JWST to sniff the atmospheres of planets within our own galaxy, searching for the chemical fingerprints of life: methane, oxygen, water vapor. But as we do this, we're haunted by the stupidly bright giants in the distance. If the universe could build massive galaxies so quickly, could it have also built life much earlier than we thought? Are there civilizations in those impossible galaxies that have already risen, flourished, and gone extinct billions of years before the Earth was even a cloud of dust? When we look at the Hubble Deep Field, we see a crowd. When we look at the JWST Deep Field, we see a history that doesn't fit our books. We see ruins that shouldn't exist, glowing with a light that challenges our understanding of time itself. The terrifying truth isn't just that the universe is big, it's that the universe is old in ways that we are still struggling to calculate. We are finding that the dawn wasn't a quiet sunrise. It was an explosion of complexity that we are only now beginning to witness. Every new image from Webb is a reminder of our own late arrival to the party. We are the newcomers, the level 0.73 civilization trying to make sense of a cosmos that was building empires when the stars themselves were a new idea. We are looking at a universe that is far more efficient, far more creative, and far more mysterious than our safe models allowed for. The impossible galaxies are the ghosts of a beginning we don't understand, standing at the edge of a horizon that is slowly closing. In this chapter of our story, we have moved from simply counting the stars to questioning the very clock they run on. We have found that the trillions of galaxies are not just scattered points in space, they are the survivors of a chaotic, rapid-fire history that we are only just beginning to excavate. The stupidly bright ruins of the early universe are a warning. Don't trust the timeline, don't trust the silence, and most of all, don't assume that because we have a number, we have the truth. The 2 trillion are still out there, and as we turn our gaze to the even darker parts of the sky, to the ghost galaxies and the dark matter skeletons, the mystery of why we are seeing any of this at all is only going to get deeper. We are the children of the cosmic suburbs, finally getting a glimpse of the ancient glowing capitals at the heart of the universe and realizing that we have no idea how they were built. This is the JWST shock. This is the moment the blueprint cracked. And as we move forward, we have to decide if we're going to cling to our old maps or if we are brave enough to follow the light into a past that shouldn't exist. The impossible is now our reality, and the trillions of galaxies are just the start of a story that is being rewritten with every photon we catch. Everything we have discussed so far, every swirling spiral of 100 billion suns, every impossible early giant captured by Webb, every pinprick of light found in the deepest trenches of time, represents only 5% of the universe. Take a moment to let that percentage sink in. If the cosmos were a massive 19-room mansion we have spent our entire history living in, mapping, and obsessing over just one small lit room, the other 18 rooms are locked, silent, and constructed from a material that does not reflect light, does not emit heat, and does not respond to any instrument we have ever built. We know those rooms are there because the house is far too heavy to be explained by the one room we can see. But as for what is actually inside them, the silence is deafening. This is the transition from the visible senses to the ghost realm. Up until now, we have treated the trillions of galaxies as the main characters of the story. But the data is beginning to show that galaxies like our Milky Way are merely the ornaments on an unseen tree. The real structure of the universe, the trunk, and the branches that dictate where every star is born and where every galaxy must drift, is made of something we call dark matter. We call it dark not because it is black, but because it is a placeholder for our ignorance. It accounts for roughly 27% of everything that exists, and it forms a vast invisible scaffolding upon which all visible matter is draped. Imagine you are looking at a city from a high-altitude flight at night. You see the glowing grids of streetlights and the neon signs of the downtown core. It would be easy to assume that the lights are the city, but they aren't. The city is the concrete, the steel, the asphalt, and the millions of tons of invisible infrastructure that allow those lights to exist in the first place. In the cosmos, the trillions of galaxies are those lights. Dark matter is the invisible city. For decades, we believed that every massive clump of dark matter would eventually pull in enough gas to ignite a galaxy. We assumed that the scaffolding and the ornaments always went together. But recently our archaeological dig into the deep universe has revealed something much more unsettling: ghost galaxies. These are not just distant or faint systems, they are failed empires. Take candidate Dark Galaxy 2, a discovery that has sent shivers through the astronomical community. It is a massive structure, as heavy as a galaxy, but it is 99% dark matter. It has almost no stars. It has no internal glow. It is a heavy, silent giant drifting through the void, a ghost that we only discovered because it tugged on the light of things behind it. Think about the implications of this. If we have found one dark galaxy, how many millions more are out there? It is possible that the 2 trillion galaxies we've been counting are just the rare, lucky ones that managed to strike a match in the dark. The universe may be teeming with massive starless structures, dead empires of gravity that will never ever shine. This adds a new layer to the terror of the census. The night sky isn't just a mask hiding distant light, it's a graveyard of invisible weight. We are surrounded by a ghost realm of structures that are real, massive and influential, yet they refuse to participate in the world of light. These bright ruins suggest that we have fundamentally misunderstood the dark ages of the universe, that the period before light wasn't a slow transition, but a violent, rapid eruption of structure. On the other side, you have the defense, scientists working frantically to find a way to save the standard model. They argue that perhaps these galaxies aren't actually as massive as they look, that maybe they are just filled with unusually bright stars that are tricking our instruments, or that our distance measurements are slightly off. But even the defense is struggling. The more we look, the more of these impossible structures we find. We are discovering that the early universe was a much busier, much more crowded place than we ever dared to imagine. It wasn't just a few lonely stars in the dark, it was a teeming, luminous landscape of ruins that were already old when the rest of the universe was just being born. This changes the emotional weight of the 2 trillion number. It means the census isn't just about counting what's there, it's about explaining how anything could be there at all. This brings us back to the idea of cosmic archaeology. If we are finding fully formed cities in the earliest layers of the universe, it means we are missing a chapter of the story. There must be an invisible history that happened even earlier, a period of even more rapid growth that our telescopes are only just beginning to touch. We are digging trench cuts in time, and every time we go deeper, we find that the nothingness we expected is actually filled with ancient, inexplicable light. The terror of the JWST shock is the realization that our legibility window might be even more fragile than we thought. We are seeing these bright, mature galaxies at the very edge of our vision, but because the universe is expanding, they are receding from us at incredible speeds. Their light is being stretched, red-shifted into the infrared, becoming fainter and more difficult to catch. We are in a race against the expansion of space to document these ruins before they cross the horizon and are lost to us forever. And it's not just about the galaxies themselves. We're using JWST to sniff the atmospheres of planets within our own galaxy, searching for the chemical fingerprints of life: methane, oxygen, water vapor. But as we do this, we're haunted by the stupidly bright giants in the distance. If the universe could build massive galaxies so quickly, could it have also built life much earlier than we thought? Are there civilizations in those impossible galaxies that have already risen, flourished, and gone extinct billions of years before the Earth was even a cloud of dust? When we look at the Hubble Deep Field, we see a crowd. When we look at the JWST Deep Field, we see a history that doesn't fit our books. We see ruins that shouldn't exist, glowing with a light that challenges our understanding of time itself. The terrifying truth isn't just that the universe is big, it's that the universe is old in ways that we are still struggling to calculate. We are finding that the dawn wasn't a quiet sunrise. It was an explosion of complexity that we are only now beginning to witness. Every new image from Webb is a reminder of our own late arrival to the party. We are the newcomers, the level 0.73 civilization trying to make sense of a cosmos that was building empires when the stars themselves were a new idea. We are looking at a universe that is far more efficient, far more creative, and far more mysterious than our safe models allowed for. The impossible galaxies are the ghosts of a beginning we don't understand, standing at the edge of a horizon that is slowly closing. In this chapter of our story, we have moved from simply counting the stars to questioning the very clock they run on. We have found that the trillions of galaxies are not just scattered points in space, they are the survivors of a chaotic, rapid-fire history that we are only just beginning to excavate. The stupidly bright ruins of the early universe are a warning. Don't trust the timeline, don't trust the silence, and most of all, don't assume that because we have a number, we have the truth. The 2 trillion are still out there, and as we turn our gaze to the even darker parts of the sky, to the ghost galaxies and the dark matter skeletons, the mystery of why we are seeing any of this at all is only going to get deeper. We are the children of the cosmic suburbs, finally getting a glimpse of the ancient glowing capitals at the heart of the universe and realizing that we have no idea how they were built. This is the JWST shock. This is the moment the blueprint cracked. And as we move forward, we have to decide if we're going to cling to our old maps or if we are brave enough to follow the light into a past that shouldn't exist. The impossible is now our reality, and the trillions of galaxies are just the start of a story that is being rewritten with every photon we catch. Everything we have discussed so far, every swirling spiral of 100 billion suns, every impossible early giant captured by Webb, every pinprick of light found in the deepest trenches of time, represents only 5% of the universe. Take a moment to let that percentage sink in. If the cosmos were a massive 19-room mansion, we have spent our entire history living in, mapping, and obsessing over just one small lit room. The other 18 rooms are locked, silent, and constructed from a material that does not reflect light, does not emit heat, and does not respond to any instrument we have ever built. We know those rooms are there because the house is far too heavy to be explained by the one room we can see. But as for what is actually inside them, the silence is deafening. This is the transition from the visible senses to the ghost realm. Up until now, we have treated the trillions of galaxies as the main characters of the story. But the data is beginning to show that galaxies like our Milky Way are merely the ornaments on an unseen tree. The real structure of the universe, the trunk, and the branches that dictate where every star is born and where every galaxy must drift, is made of something we call dark matter. We call it dark not because it is black, but because it is a placeholder for our ignorance. It accounts for roughly 27% of everything that exists, and it forms a vast invisible scaffolding upon which all visible matter is draped. Imagine you are looking at a city from a high-altitude flight at night. You see the glowing grids of streetlights and the neon signs of the downtown core. It would be easy to assume that the lights are the city, but they aren't. The city is the concrete, the steel, the asphalt, and the millions of tons of invisible infrastructure that allow those lights to exist in the first place. In the cosmos, the trillions of galaxies are those lights. Dark matter is the invisible city. For decades, we believed that every massive clump of dark matter would eventually pull in enough gas to ignite a galaxy. We assumed that the scaffolding and the ornaments always went together. But recently our archaeological dig into the deep universe has revealed something much more unsettling: ghost galaxies. These are not just distant or faint systems, they are failed empires. Take candidate Dark Galaxy 2, a discovery that has sent shivers through the astronomical community. It is a massive structure, as heavy as a galaxy, but it is 99% dark matter. It has almost no stars. It has no internal glow. It is a heavy, silent giant drifting through the void, a ghost that we only discovered because it tugged on the light of things behind it. Think about the implications of this. If we have found one dark galaxy, how many millions more are out there? It is possible that the 2 trillion galaxies we've been counting are just the rare, lucky ones that managed to strike a match in the dark. The universe may be teeming with massive starless structures, dead empires of gravity that will never ever shine. This adds a new layer to the terror of the census. The night sky isn't just a mask-hiding distant light, it's a graveyard of invisible weight. We are surrounded by a ghost realm of structures that are real, massive and influential, yet they refuse to participate in the world of light. This invisible scaffolding is what we call the cosmic web. Using our most advanced supercomputers and gravitational mapping, we have begun to see the shape of it. It looks like a giant tangled net of silk threads, stretching across billions of light years. The galaxies we see are just the tiny dewdrops caught in the intersections of those threads. But the threads themselves, the most massive part of the network, remain invisible. This web is what keeps the universe from flying apart. Without this dark scaffolding, the Milky Way would spin so fast that its stars would be flung into the void like mud off a rotating tire. We owe our very existence to a ghost we cannot touch. But here is where the ghost realm crosses over into the greatest mystery of all, the silence. If there are trillions of galaxies, and each of those galaxies is sitting on a massive foundation of dark matter, then the universe should be overflowing with life. This is the Fermi paradox. According to cold, hard statistics, there should be millions of intelligent civilizations out there. The sun is not special. The Earth is not special. Heavy elements like gold, silver and iron are scattered across the cosmos by every supernova explosion. The ingredients for life are everywhere. So why is the sky so quiet? For a long time, we thought we just weren't looking hard enough. But the more we look, the more the silence feels unnatural. Some suggest that we are living in a great reserve, a protected pocket of space where we are being watched by superior civilizations, like fish in a tank who have never seen the ocean. Others suggest a more terrifying possibility, that we are the first, that in the 13.8 billion year history of the universe, it took this long for the heavy elements to build up enough to create a rocky planet like Earth, and a stable star like the Sun. But there is a darker theory lurking in the ghost realm. What if the trillions of galaxies are not overflowing with life because most of them are hostile to it? We see supernova explosions that can strip the ozone layer off a planet from 20 light years away. We see stupidly bright early galaxies that were likely flooded with lethal radiation. Perhaps the reason we don't hear anyone is that the legibility window, that brief peaceful era when a civilization can thrive, is much smaller than we realized. Or perhaps the civilizations are there, but they have moved into the ghost realm. We communicate with radio waves and light, but light is the slowest, most inefficient way to talk across the stars. An advanced civilization might communicate through the dark matter scaffolding itself, or through physics we haven't even named yet. We aren't hearing them because we are deaf to the real conversation. We are like ants trying to understand a fiber optic cable by smelling the plastic coating. We see the 5%, the visible residue, and think we understand the story. But the real empire is happening in the other 95%. The terror of the ghost realm is the realization that we are not just small in space, we are small in reality. We are a light-based species trying to make sense of a dark-based universe. We are counting the sparks and ignoring the fire. The trillions of galaxies are beautiful, yes, but they are a distraction. They are the highlight reel of a much larger, much colder, and much more mysterious structure that doesn't care about our light. As we look at the cosmic web, we have to accept that we are the stardust that woke up to look at a skeleton. We are the conscious edge of a dark machine. And as we move into the next chapter of this mystery, we have to confront the most brutal truth of all. The scaffolding that holds us together is also the same force that is eventually going to tear us apart. The ghost realm isn't just our foundation, it is our destiny. And in the background of all this, there is something even larger pulling on us. Deep in the universe, beyond what we can see, there is a very attractive force pulling the Milky Way at 600 kilometers per second. Scientists have identified this unknown source as the giant shadow man, or the Great Attractor. It is 1,000 trillion times the mass of the Sun, and although it is invisible to our light-based eyes, its gravitational shadow dictates our entire trajectory through the void. We are not just drifting, we are being summoned by a monster lurking in the depths of the universe. We are living in the golden age of the visible. We are the ones who get to see the trillions of galaxies before they fade into the silence. But we must never forget that the darkness isn't just nothing, it is the majority, it is the architect, and it is the final destination for every star that has ever dared to shine. The ghost realm is waiting, and the trillions of galaxies are just the brief flickering evidence that for one small moment in eternity, the darkness was forced to share its stage. For decades, we have comforted ourselves with a specific rule, a fundamental law that allows us to sleep at night believing we understand the structural foundation of the cosmos. We call it the cosmological principle. It is the idea that on a large enough scale, the universe is roughly uniform and looks the same in every direction. According to this blueprint, if you zoom out far enough, the trillion galaxy empire should become a smooth, featureless mist. In the eyes of a cosmologist, the universe is supposed to be like a giant, well-blended pot of basic chestnut soup. No matter where you take a spoonful, the ingredients should be the same. This principle isn't just a convenience, it is the bedrock upon which all our maps of the 93 billion light-year observable universe are built. But recently we've started finding lumps in the soup that are so large they threaten to crack the bowl entirely. We are discovering that the cosmic blueprint we've been using is deeply flawed. There is a specific threshold in physics called the scale of homogeneity. According to our best theories, no structure in the universe should be larger than about 1.2 billion light-years across. Gravity simply shouldn't have had enough time to pull anything larger together since the Big Bang. But as our trench cuts into time have grown deeper, we have collided with organized, coherent architectures that break this speed limit of creation. In 2024, astronomers identified the giant arc and the Big Ring. The giant arc is a crescent-shaped alignment of galaxies stretching over 3.3 billion light-years. To put that in perspective, it takes up about 15% of the radius of the entire observable universe. Nearby, the Big Ring sits like a crown in the dark, a circle of galaxies 1.3 billion light-years in diameter. These aren't just random clusters, they are ruins that the universe shouldn't have been able to build yet. They suggest that the blueprint of the cosmos has a hidden layer, a deeper level of organization that we are only beginning to witness. This has put our standard model of cosmology under a brutal cross-examination. One set of maps says the cosmic blueprint is cracking, while another says the blueprint is still standing after better correction. But it isn't just the size of these structures that is terrifying, it's their influence. We've discovered that we aren't just drifting through a random void, we are being summoned. Since the 1970s, astronomers mapping the cosmic microwave background have known that the Milky Way is not sitting still. We are running wild through the universe at a staggering 600 kilometers per second. We found a terrifying speed difference between the stars on both sides of our galaxy, which means that deep in the universe, in a place we can't see, there is a very attractive force pulling us closer to it. Scientists have identified this unknown source of attraction as a monster lurking in the depths. They call it the Great Attractor, or the Giant Shadow Man. It is 1,000 trillion times the mass of the Sun. It sits roughly 220 million light-years from Earth, acting as the center of our local supercluster, Laniakea. Laniakea is a superior system, 520 million light-years in diameter, containing over 100,000 galaxies. In this scale, the Milky Way is just a grain of sand, and we are being dragged toward the Shadow Man like dust caught in a draft. The giant Shadow Man is invisible to traditional telescopes because it is hidden behind the zone of avoidance, the thick, dusty disk of our own galaxy that blocks our view. We can only sense its presence through the way it manipulates the galaxies around it. Only radio telescopes, like the massive 500-meter caliber dish hidden in the mountains of Guizhou, can travel beyond the visible light band to gather information about this filmmaker. We are part of a cosmic migration we didn't sign up for, moving toward a destination we cannot see. Equivalent systems like the Peacock Indian and Hydra Centaurus superclusters are also being pulled, shaped like feathers in the universe connected to a great wall of galaxies. This is the central tension of the modern census. On one side, we have the prosecution, the giant structures like the Big Ring and the Giant Arc that say the standard model of a uniform universe is dead. They argue that there are patterns in the dark that our math cannot explain. On the other side, we have the defense, researchers arguing that these structures might be statistical flukes, or that improved survey techniques will rescue the principle of homogeneity. But the giant shadow man doesn't care about the debate. Its gravity is real, its pull is constant. And here is the ultimate paradox of our motion. Even though we are screaming toward the shadow man at 600 kilometers per second, we will never reach it. Because while the shadow man is pulling us in, the expansion of the universe is pushing everything apart even faster. Expansion is the culprit that completely outweighs the attractive force on a large scale, making the density of matter in the universe lower and lower. We are like a person running toward the back of a train while the train itself is accelerating in the opposite direction. This creates a universe of cosmic fibers and great walls. We see galaxies connecting into long, thin feathers of light, forming a network that looks like a brain's neural pathways. But these veins are being stretched to the breaking point. The larger the system, the more the swelling pole of expansion tears at it. Eventually, the Laniakea supercluster and the Shadow Man itself will be ripped apart by the force of cosmic expansion. In roughly 21.8 billion years, superclusters will start to disintegrate. In 140 million years, the force will travel to the scale of the Milky Way and Andromeda, beginning their disintegration. The terrifying truth of the census is that the universe is not a smooth soup. It is a structured, organized, and violent machine. It has organs the size of billions of light years and shadows that dictate the fate of 100,000 galaxies. We are finding that the nothingness we once believed in is actually a complex web of attraction and repulsion. We used to think the universe was a silent theatre where we were the only actors. Now we realize we're just a grain of dust on a feather, being pulled toward a monster we can't see, in a blueprint we don't understand, while the very floor of the theatre is being pulled out from under us. The trillions of galaxies are not just dots on a map, they are the victims of a structural war. As we continue to map the giant shadow man and the structures that shouldn't exist, we are realizing that the biggest secret of the universe isn't its size, it's the fact that the blueprint is still changing, and we are the only ones left to watch it crack. We are a fleeting slice of the universe, catching a moment before everything disintegrates into a pot of basic chestnut soup, where atoms, molecules, and black holes no longer exist. The census is failing because the universe is erasing the very evidence we need to understand it. We are running toward a ghost in a room that is being torn apart. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the center of a vast, brightly lit ballroom. In every direction, as far as you can see, there are billions of other people, all dancing, all talking, all connected in a single, massive celebration of light and movement. But there is a catch. The floor of this ballroom is made of a strange elastic material that is constantly stretching. At first, the stretching is slow. You can easily walk over to a friend a few feet away. But as you look toward the edges of the room, you realize that the further away someone is, the faster they are moving away from you. Eventually, you notice a specific invisible line on the floor. Beyond this line, the floor is stretching so fast that the people on the other side are receding at a speed that exceeds your ability to ever reach them. Even if you ran at your absolute maximum speed, the space between you would grow faster than you could cover it. Those people are still visible to you. You can see them waving, you can see the light reflecting off their clothes, but you can never, ever touch them. And as the floor continues to accelerate, that invisible line begins to move inward, closer and closer to your feet, slowly but surely shrinking your world until you are standing entirely alone in the dark. This is not a metaphor for some distant, abstract future. This is the physical reality of the universe you're standing in right now. We call this boundary the cosmic event horizon, but in the deeper, more unsettling lore of modern cosmology, it is known as the prison wall. We have spent the last few chapters marveling at the 2 trillion galaxies that fill our observable bubble. We've talked about the impossible galaxies at the dawn of time and the ghost galaxies made of dark matter. But there is a terrifying truth about that number. 2 trillion, that the headlines often leave out. While we can observe these galaxies, we have already lost them. In the 1920s, Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe was expanding, proving that distant galaxies are moving away from Earth. Decades later, we realized this expansion wasn't just a steady drift, it was accelerating. The culprit is dark energy, a mysterious force that completely outweighs gravity on a large scale, forcing the very fabric of space to stretch at an ever-increasing rate. Because of this acceleration, there is a hard dividing line in the cosmos located approximately 14.5 billion light-years away from Earth. Any galaxy beyond this point is receding from us faster than the speed of light. Now, physics tells us that nothing can travel through space faster than light, but space itself has no such speed limit. Space can stretch as fast as it wants, and it is stretching so violently that 98% of the 2 trillion galaxies we currently observe have already crossed that 14.5 billion light-year line. Let that sink in. Of the 2 trillion islands of stars we share the cosmos with, only 2% are still physically reachable. The other 98% have already slipped over the horizon. We can still see their light because that light began its journey billions of years ago, before the expansion pushed them too far. We are looking at their ghosts. If you were to board a spacecraft that could travel at 99% the speed of light and point it toward one of those galaxies tonight, you would never arrive. You could travel for 1 billion years, 1 trillion years, or until the last star in the universe burns out, and you would still be further away from your destination than when you started. The Earth is being isolated. We are being quarantined by the very physics of the vacuum. This is why the prison wall is such a potent narrative. It's not a wall made of stone or fire, but a wall made of distance and speed. No telescope we ever build, no future technology we ever invent, and no breakthrough in propulsion will ever allow us to see beyond that limit or interact with the galaxies that have crossed it. They are real, they are there, and they are lost to us for all of eternity. On Reddit and in the darker corners of the internet, this realization creates a unique kind of existential dread. People talk about the Great Deletion, the idea that the universe is actively erasing its own record. We are currently living in a fleeting slice of cosmic history, a brief window of time where the light from these distant empires is still washing over our planet. We are the only witnesses to a disappearing act, but the wall is moving. As dark energy continues to push the expansion, the cosmic event horizon is slowly shrinking from our perspective. One by one, more galaxies are crossing the line. Their light is being stretched, red-shifted into longer and longer wavelengths, moving from visible light to infrared, then to microwave, until they fade into the absolute blackness of the background. In the far, far future, trillions of years from now, any civilization that evolves on a planet like Earth will look up at a sky that is almost entirely empty. The expansion will have pushed every other galaxy beyond the prison wall. They will look at the void and conclude that their small cluster of galaxies is the entire universe. They will have no evidence of the Big Bang. They will have no evidence of the trillions of galaxies that once surrounded them. They will live in a state of permanent, unintentional ignorance, trapped in a local room of the cosmic mansion, unaware that the rest of the house ever existed. This is the terrifying truth about our place in the census. We aren't just one of many. We are one of many that are being forced apart. The 2 trillion isn't a stable population. It's a list of passengers on a ship that is sinking into a sea of infinite distance. We are currently in the lobby, arguing over the numbers and mapping the rooms while the doors are being locked and the windows are being painted black. When we say the night sky is dark because of the speed of light and the age of the universe, we're only telling half the story. The other half is that the sky is dark because the universe is a prison that is constantly building new walls. Every photon we catch from a distant galaxy is a message from a world that has already escaped us. We are cosmic archaeologists digging through the light of ghosts, trying to understand an empire that we can never visit. So, the next time you look up at that grain of sand in the sky and think about the thousands of galaxies hidden within it, remember the wall. Remember that you are looking at a mirage of accessibility. Those galaxies are not just far away, they are gone. They have been claimed by the expansion. And as you stand there, the wall is still moving, the floor is still stretching, and the universe is continuing its slow, methodical process of isolating us in the dark forever. We are the last generation that gets to see the truth before the prison doors finally click shut. We have spent this journey cataloguing a trillion galaxy empire, But we have to face a reality that is far more haunting than the mere scale of the numbers. We're not just looking at a universe that is large, we're looking at a universe that is actively committing a slow-motion suicide. In the deeper lore of cosmology, this is known as the Great Deletion. It is the realization that the census we are so desperately trying to complete is being shredded as we read it. The culprit is not time, and it is not a lack of technology. It is the very fabric of space itself, driven by a force we have named only out of our own desperation: dark energy. Dark energy accounts for a staggering 75% of everything that exists, and it is the single most dominant component of reality. It is the antagonist of our story. While gravity tries to pull the trillions of galaxies together into meaningful structures, dark energy does the opposite. It acts as a swelling pole, a repulsive force that completely outweighs the attractive force of gravity on a large scale. Because of this, the density of matter in the universe is getting lower and lower every single second. We're watching a cosmic thinning, a grand dispersal where the stuff of the universe is being pushed toward a permanent, unreachable distance. This brings us to the most brutal chapter of the cosmic timeline, the Big Rip. This isn't just a theory about galaxies drifting apart. It is a theory about the total disintegration of everything. If the current acceleration of the universe continues, and the data from the last century suggests it will, we can map the exact sequence of the universe's final days. It is a countdown to a silence so total that even atoms will not survive to witness it. The deletion begins with the largest things first. In roughly 21.8 billion years, the superior celestial systems, the superclusters that we currently map as the organs of the universe, will start to disintegrate. Structure like Laniakea, which holds 100,000 galaxies in its grasp, will find that the bond of gravity is no longer strong enough to resist the stretching of space. The feathers of the cosmic web will snap. The Great Wall will crumble. The trillion galaxy empire will be broken down into smaller isolated systems, each one trapped in its own shrinking bubble of light. But the expansion does not stop at the edges of the superclusters. It moves inward, narrowing its focus. About 140 million years before the final rip, the force of cosmic expansion will travel down to the 100,000 light-year scale. At this point, even the strongest gravitational bonds will fail. The Milky Way and its neighbour Andromeda will begin to disintegrate. The stars will be pulled away from their galactic centres. The spiral arms will unravel. For the first time in billions of years, there will be no galaxies in the universe. There will only be lonely, isolated stars drifting through an ever-growing void. Then, the deletion moves into our own backyard. 3 months before the end, the force of expansion reaches the scale of the solar system. The tether between the Earth and the Sun will be severed. The planets will be flung away from their host stars, sent careening into a darkness that is expanding so fast that no light from their former suns can ever reach them again. Within those final 3 months, the solar system, which has existed for 5 billion years, will simply cease to exist. In the last few minutes, the forces of cosmic expansion will finally act on the planets themselves. If you were standing on the Earth, the view from space would be horrifying. The planet would not just explode, it would be torn apart as the energy of expansion becomes greater than the combined gravitational energy of the Earth. The very ground beneath your feet would lose its coherence, and then comes the last Planck time before the rip, a fraction of a second so small it is written as 10 to the minus 19 seconds. In that final, infinitesimal moment, the force of expansion becomes so violent that it acts on the atomic level. Every molecule will be ripped apart. Every atom will disintegrate. The protons, the neutrons, and the electrons that once built the stars and the galaxies, and the people who tried to count them, will be shredded into their most basic components. At that point, the entire universe becomes what some call a pot of basic chestnut soup. Atoms are gone. Molecules are gone. Black holes, galaxies, and celestial bodies no longer exist. The universe returns to a state of total, featureless uniformity, but this time, it is a uniformity of nothingness. There is no information left. The record has been completely erased. This is the terrifying truth about the 2 trillion galaxies. They are a temporary phenomenon. We think of them as permanent fixtures of reality, but they are actually just a fleeting slice of a much longer and darker story. The reason the night sky is dark is because we are losing the war against the void. Every galaxy beyond the 14.5 billion light-year line has already lost contact with us forever. They are receding faster than the speed of light, not because they are moving through space, but because space itself is a culprit that is isolating us. When we look at a deep field image, we are essentially looking at recovered tape from a universe that is already being deleted. We are catching the last signals of a cosmos that is working very hard to stay hidden. This is why the Great Deletion is the ultimate retention hook. It changes the way we see every discovery. The impossible galaxies found by Webb are not just ruins. They are ruins that the universe is actively trying to throw away. The ghost galaxies are not just missing, they are the first casualties of a census that refuses to stay still. We are living in the only era where the universe is legible. If we had arrived 50 billion years later, we would have no evidence that other galaxies even existed. We would look at the blackness and conclude we were the only things in the void. Our science, our philosophy, and our very sense of self would be built on a lie of total isolation. We are the lucky witnesses who arrived right before the curtain was pulled shut. But there is a final haunting possibility. Some physicists, like Roger Penrose, believe that this might not be a one-way trip. They suggest a circular universe theory, where the expansion eventually stops and the universe begins to contract, getting denser and denser until all galaxies come back together in a new Big Bang. It is a cycle of birth, growth, deletion, and rebirth. But for now, we have no evidence for that cycle. All we have is the data, and the data says the void is winning. The trillion-galaxy empire is a disappearing act. The numbers we are fighting to calculate are not just a count of what exists, they are a count of what is being lost. As we move into the final chapters of this script, we have to realize that the terrifying truth isn't that the universe is so big. It's that the universe is so big, and yet it is still choosing to leave us behind. We are the stardust that woke up to count the stars, only to find that the stars are running away. The Great Deletion is underway, and every photon we catch is a miracle of timing in a universe that is destined to become a silent, featureless soup. We often think of 13.8 billion years as an eternity. It is a number so vast that it covers the entire history of everything we have ever known. But in the grand, sweeping narrative of the cosmos, 13.8 billion years is nothing. It is the first hour of a trillion-year day. It is the morning mist. And yet, by some staggering, terrifying coincidence, we have emerged into consciousness at the exact moment when the universe is at its most legible. This is what astronomers call the legibility window, and it might be the most haunting piece of evidence in the entire galaxy census. To understand why this timing is so miraculous and so fleeting, we have to look back at the first generation of stars. When the universe was born, it was a simple place. It was almost entirely hydrogen and helium. There was no carbon for our cells, no oxygen for our lungs, and no iron for the cores of rocky planets. Those first-generation stars were massive, short-lived giants that lived and died in a universe where the conditions for evolution simply did not exist. There were no rocks. There were no second Earths like Kepler 452b or K2-18b. There was only gas and fire. It took billions of years for those first stars to die and explode in violent supernovae, scattering heavy elements like gold, silver, and copper across the void. We are made of that debris. As the law reminds us, the calcium in your teeth and the iron in your blood were forged in those ancient furnaces. But this process of metallicity, of making the universe solid enough to stand on, took time. It wasn't until the second and third generation of stars, represented by our own sun, that the universe finally became complex enough to support life. We arrived exactly when the materials were ready, but here is the catch. We also arrived right before the evidence disappears. We live in a unique era where the universe is still young enough that the Big Bang's light is still visible as the cosmic microwave background. We live in an era where the 2 trillion galaxies are still close enough that their light can reach our telescopes. We are the observers who stepped into the theatre while the play was still in its first act. But as we've seen in the previous chapters, the stage is already being dismantled. Think about the civilizations that will come after us. Those that might evolve in 1 trillion years on a planet orbiting a long-lived red dwarf star. By the time they develop telescopes, the expansion of the universe will have pushed every other galaxy beyond the cosmic prison wall. They will look up at a sky that is pitch black. There will be no distant deep fields for them to excavate. There will be no red-shifted light to tell them that space is expanding. To them, the universe will look like a single, lonely cluster of stars in an infinite static void. They will build their entire science and philosophy on a lie, the lie of total isolation, simply because they arrived too late to see the truth. They will never know about the 2 trillion galaxies. They will never know about the impossible galaxies of the early dawn, or the giant shadow man pulling on the local group. Their universe will be a small, dark room, and they will have no way to know that the rest of the mansion ever existed. We, on the other hand, are the only ones who get to see the whole blueprint. We are the first generation of stardust that woke up with enough time to look around before the lights were turned off. This brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all, the Fermi paradox. If there are trillions of galaxies, and each galaxy has hundreds of billions of stars, where is everyone? In terms of pure probability, the sky should be screaming with signals. The Sun and the Earth are not special. We have already found over 5,000 exoplanets, and we've sifted through candidates like K2-18b, where water vapor and methane, the chemical fingerprints of life, have already been detected. If the conditions for life are so common, why is the silence so deafening? Some believe the answer lies in the pure water hypothesis. As the saying goes, if a fish has never met one of its kind, it means he lives in pure water. Perhaps the region of space we occupy is a reserve, a protected pocket where low-tech civilizations are allowed to evolve without interference. Maybe we're being observed and protected until we reach a certain level of technological maturity. But there is a more haunting possibility that matches our legibility window theory. We might be the first. When we look at the timeline of the universe, it's possible that we are the very first intelligent civilization to emerge in the entire 13.8 billion-year history of the cosmos. It took that long for the heavy elements to build up. It took that long for a stable star system to form in the suburbs of a galaxy, far away from the lethal radiation of the central core. We aren't just lonely, we are the pioneers. The 2 trillion galaxies aren't empty because life is impossible. They are empty because they are waiting for their first inhabitants. Currently, we are only a level 0.73 civilization. We haven't even mastered our own solar system. It takes us a week to reach the moon, and 6 months to reach Mars. We are still dreaming of space elevators and recyclable rockets just to get our supplies off the ground at a low cost. It will be another 300 to 500 years before we even become a true level 1 civilization, capable of exploring our local neighborhood. We are infants standing at a window, looking out at an empire of trillions, while the window is slowly being painted black. The terrifying truth of this chapter is the weight of our responsibility. If we are the first, then we are the only ones who can record the history of the universe before it is deleted. We are the universe's only chance to know itself. Every discovery we make, every deep field we map, and every ghost galaxy we identify is a piece of evidence that we are saving from the Great Deletion. We are living in a fleeting slice of time where the universe is both complex enough to produce us and clear enough to be understood. It is a cosmic coincidence of such magnitude that it feels almost intentional. But there is no one to thank, and there is no one to ask for more time. There is only the expansion, the encroaching darkness, and the ticking clock of our own evolution. If we fail, if we destroy ourselves, or stay trapped on our single pale blue dot, then the knowledge of those 2 trillion galaxies dies with us. The story of the Big Bang, the giant arc, and the Great Attractor will vanish into the void, and the future inhabitants of the cosmos will never even know they were part of a larger story. We are the keepers of the light in a room that is slowly going dark. This is the existential dread of the legibility window. It frames our current scientific triumphs not as a permanent victory, but as a desperate, timed mission. We are the cosmic archaeologists who have stumbled upon a library that is currently on fire. We don't have time to read every book, but we have to save as many as we can. As we look up at the night sky, we shouldn't just see stars. We should see a deadline. We should see the trillions of galaxies not as distant dots, but as fading signals from a history that is being erased. We are the ones who were lucky enough to be born when the sky was still full, and as we move into our final chapter, we have to confront what it means to be the last witnesses to a truth that the universe is determined to hide. We are stardust with a clock, and the clock is running out. The census of the 2 trillion is not a completed work, it is a race. It is a race to understand our origins before the expansion of space makes those origins unreachable. It is a race to find another home, perhaps on a second Earth like Kepler 452b, before the Sun expands into a red giant and swallows our current home whole. We are a level 0.73 species with a level 10 destiny, and the legibility window is our only chance to get it right. The universe is silent not because it is empty, but because it is waiting. Or perhaps it is silent because we are the only ones left to speak. Either way, the trillions of galaxies are watching us from across the horizon, drifting slowly into the black, waiting to see if the stardust that woke up is brave enough to follow them into the dark. We have reached the end of the map. We have counted the ghosts, excavated the ruins, and stood before the invisible walls of our cosmic prison. We have seen a universe that is 2 trillion galaxies strong, yet seemingly indifferent to our existence. But as we stand here, at the edge of the known, we have to confront the final, most haunting paradox of all. It is a truth that bridges the gap between the terrifying scale of the void and the small, fragile warmth of your own breath. If there are truly 2 trillion galaxies, and if each of those galaxies is a city of stars like IC 1101, which holds a staggering 100 trillion suns, then the sheer probability of life should be overwhelming. The math tells us the sky should be screaming with signals. We have already identified over 5,000 worlds outside our solar system, sifting through second Earths like K28b, a world 8 times the size of our own, where water vapor has been detected in the atmosphere. We have looked at Kepler 452b, a super-Earth older and brighter than our own, potentially harboring a greenhouse effect that could support a completely different kind of biology. The ingredients are there, the water is there, the time has been there, and yet the silence persists. This silence leads us to 2 possible futures, each as terrifying as the other. The first is that we are the fish in pure water, that we're being observed and protected in a cosmic reserve, waiting until our technology reaches a height where we can finally be accepted into the galactic community. We are currently only a level 0.73 civilization, a species that still struggles to leave its own atmosphere at a low cost. Our future depends not on the next rocket, but on the breakthrough of materials technology, the space elevator. This single invention would change everything, allowing ordinary people to become the workhorses of a new era, building industrial systems in space, and making the Moon and Mars not just research stations but true new homes. We're on the verge of becoming a level 1 civilization, beginning a journey from the Earth to the solar system, and eventually to the stars. But the second possibility is the one that keeps astronomers awake at night. What if there is no one else? What if, in the 13.8 billion year history of the universe, we are the very first? It took billions of years for the heavy elements, the gold in your jewelry, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your teeth, to be forged in the hearts of dying stars and scattered across the void by supernova explosions. We are the debris of those ancient catastrophes. We are literally made of stardust that woke up and began to wonder where it came from. If we are the first, then the 2 trillion galaxies are not a crowded neighborhood, but a vast, empty wilderness waiting for its first pioneers. And we are running out of time. Our own star, the Sun, is not eternal. In 5 billion years, it will exhaust its fuel and expand into a red giant, a bloated, glowing monster that will swallow the Moon and the Earth whole. Long before that happens, the heat will strip our atmosphere and boil our oceans. The only survivors in our solar system might be the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like Europa or Titan, which could become the new habitable frontiers in a dying system. We are a species with a deadline, trapped on a rock that has a shelf life, in a universe that is actively erasing the evidence of its own birth. This is the final paradox. On one hand, we are vanishingly small, laughably brief flickers of consciousness in a theatre that does not know we are here. Every empire we've built, every war we've fought, and every love letter we've ever written has unfolded on a tiny stage that would not pause for a single nanosecond if we disappeared. But on the other hand, we are the only part of this mindless machine that feels. We are the part that looks up. We are the part that asks why. In a universe of dark matter and indifferent expansion, the fact that caring exists at all is the most significant event in 13.8 billion years of history. The atoms in your body do not care about the Big Rip. The stars do not care about the giant shadow man. The 2 trillion galaxies do not care that they are being deleted. But you do. and in a cosmos of empty distances, that might be the only thing that actually matters. We are the universe becoming conscious of itself. We are the eyes of the cosmos, looking back at the dark and refusing to be intimidated by the scale. We live in the legibility window, the brief golden hour of cosmic history where the light of 1 trillion galaxies can still reach us. We are the lucky ones who get to see the blueprint before it's torn up. So, do not look at the night sky and feel insignificant. Look at the night sky and feel the weight of your responsibility. You are the witness. You are the storyteller. And as the galaxies drift further away, and the prison wall of the horizon closes in, remember that the darkness isn't just an empty void. It is a reminder that while the light lasts, we have to make it count. We are stardust with a clock, and the clock is ticking. But for now, the sky is still full, the windows are still open, and the story is still ours to tell.